Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Informer. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Before we get started, I want to apologize that we had to cancel Monday's show due to a medical emergency and that we didn't get the word out to everyone on time. We intend to reschedule with H.K. Edgerton as soon as possible and we'll let you know. Quick Trump update. You may have seen the prescription drug EO that Trump issued. Now, obviously he was not instituting price controls. The bulk of what he did was just expose how bad the American public is getting ripped off from the drug companies, and for how long. And if you compare what we pay to what other countries pay, it's outrageous. We're getting soaked, and so he's not really, unless he intends to stop federal agencies from buying these drugs unless they meet that price level, comparative to other countries. I think the main thing he did here was expose them. So we'll have to see if he does anything beyond that. Obviously, that's not something that a president is empowered to do, but I do appreciate that he exposed the drug companies. Not that we ever thought they were honest by any means. Trump's big, beautiful bill that cuts nothing. That's an article according to Senator Johnson from Wisconsin, and he's really one of the better senators up there. And if you look over, I'm sure you have probably read that in several places. There's not a lot of cuts in this thing. In fact, I saw not long before I got here that they may have to break it down into two bills. But there's got to be some cuts. It makes no sense whatsoever to have DOJ identify all these cuts, identify all this waste, and then have a bill that actually spends more than what we did last year. So I hope they get it straight, and I hope they do make some significant cuts. Before we get to our main story, there was another thing that I haven't heard much about, but I did see an article on, and I thought it was pretty interesting, and kudos to Trump for doing this. And this is from the Federalist, thefederalist.com, and he said he signed an EO. This was last Friday with a broad scope and deep implications under the Fighting Over Criminalization in Federal Regulations. And it starts off with some pretty straightforward language. And this is from Trump. The Code of Federal Regulations contains over 48,000 sections, stretching over 175,000 pages. Far more than any citizen can possibly read, let alone fully understand. Worse, many carry potential criminal penalties for violations. The situation has become so dire that no one likely, including those charged with enforcing our criminal laws at the Department of Justice, knows how many separate criminal offenses are contained in the Code of Federal Regulations, with at least one source estimating hundreds of thousands of such crimes. Many of these are regulatory crimes and are strict liability offenses, meaning that the citizen need not know they were violating the law to be charged. And so the gist of it is he's putting an end to this, and I'm sure he'll have to have some help with Congress on this, but no longer are these things that are at the federal level, unless the agency spells out the specific criminal activity, and it's not going to be prosecuted. So basically what he's doing, he's turning as many things along these lines back to the states as possible. And that's a good thing. We have way too many federal regulations. Like he said, no way anybody can keep up with them. Citizens, I'm sure all of us violate numerous federal laws every day and have no clue about it. So now to our main story. The epic planned Islamic community in Plano, Texas has people very concerned, as it should. Construction has been ordered stopped by the state, which is investigating, as is our DOJ now. Here to talk about the situation is Major General retired Robert Bodisch, Sr. Formerly of the Texas State Guard, who was also the Deputy Director and Chief, I'm having some technical issues here, Chief of Staff of the Texas Department of Public Safety. Retired from Texas Homeland Security. He's got also a lot of years experience in counterterrorism. His police work, his police days go back to Law enforcement days go back to the early 70s. So he's got a wealth of experience. He's also very well versed on Islam and has been following the situation closely in Texas. Robert, how are you doing tonight?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you coming, and I know you have a wealth of knowledge. And like I said, I've been seeing a lot of concern about this online, and I'm glad that people are concerned. The state has ordered construction stopped, and the DOJ is investigating. What do you know about the organization building this community, and why should we be concerned? I think most of us kind of instinctively know whether we are well versed or not. I think to a lot of people it's just like this is not good. So I want to turn it over to you and get some of your expertise on this.
Okay, well, so Epic City is being developed by the East Plano Center, which is an Islamic mega mosque in Plano, Texas, and that's up by Dallas. And the East Plano Islamic Center has acquired vast land holdings to construct Sharia adherent Islamic communities, so enclaves. Epic City is phase one, which is a planned 402 acre development, which is about 30 miles outside of Dallas and just outside of Josephine, Texas, which is a small community. The Islamic community of the Islamic City will include more than 1,000 residences, a mega mosque, a private K through 12 Islamic school, multifamily townhomes, senior living facilities, commercial and retail centers that operate within the Islamic economic framework of Sharia, parks, sports field, and recreational spaces. Now, Epic City is designed as an autonomous Islamic enclave where religious leadership governs education, commerce, and daily life. Epic City is designed to be an Islamic-controlled district that functions outside traditional municipal or governmental oversight and legal structure, or at least that's what they're trying to accomplish. Other Epic developments include 1,500 acres, which will be Epic Ranches Phase 1, which are 1 to 5 acre plots, and Epic Ranches Phase 2, which will be half-acre plots. Now, the Islamic Center Mega Mosque is a tax-exempt 501c3 religious nonprofit organization. So that's important to remember that. They are a 501c3 religious organization. The developer for Epic City is Community Capital Partners, CCP. Now, CCP is entirely controlled by Epic, the mega mosque, blurring the lines between religious nonprofit and private investment and development.
Yeah.
So the leadership of Epic City remains shrouded in secrecy, and we'll talk in a minute about some of the individuals that are specifically involved. Individuals who oversee Epic's mega mosque nonprofit operations also direct the financial and the executive roles in Epic City and Epic City Ranches developments. So now all this stuff is starting to cross over like this, the same people. Essentially, Community Capital Partners, a for-profit developer of Epic City, is fully controlled by the East Plano Islamic Center Mega Mosque, which is, of course, a 501c3. Very unusual.
How did they even get by with structuring this? I mean, I would have thought that would have been a red flag to somebody.
Well, there are lots of red flags right now. So Epic City is following a deliberate playbook designed to avoid early scrutiny by government and public, exploiting government infrastructures like municipal utility districts. That's going to be another important point. And quietly gain access to public infrastructure and taxpayer resources after the fact. So MUDs allow developers to operate outside of city zoning laws and municipal or county oversight. So that's why you can understand why they're using that structure is using those municipal utility districts. And there's some other very important aspects of this too. MUDs create a separate developer-controlled governance structure where private entities dictate the infrastructure, land use policies, and enforcement mechanisms. If private leadership exercises unchecked authority, it could create an environment where standard municipal oversight does not apply and where local authorities have limited or no ability to intervene in complaints, disputes, or regulatory enforcement. So you can see why Epic City is going after those types of structures.
So those structures already existed.
Yes, and a lot of states have municipal utility districts. So it's a common process that's been around for a long time. The leadership of Epic City openly acknowledges that the MUD process serves as a deliberate delay tactic, ensuring that by the time construction begins, the project is too entrenched to stop. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case in Texas because it's already been brought to a stop. Some implications of the MUD structure include city zoning laws don't apply. Roads, water, sewage, utilities, and privately managed rather than being subject to city or county standards. Epic City will not have a dedicated municipal police oversight, but what they probably will have are Sharia patrols. And I don't know if you've seen these lately, but there was a report of Sharia patrols that are taking place in New York City where you have Muslims wearing police uniforms or what similar uniforms. It's a security uniform, and they have marked vehicles, and they're patrolling the Muslim neighborhoods and enforcing Sharia law because they can't go out there and enforce state or local laws. So
and New York is allowing that. Surprise.
Yeah. Well, and they're driving the cars that look like police cars. And so if they didn't want that to happen, they could certainly do something about that if they wanted to. Unlike cities and counties, which must operate under an elected government, MUDs are run by private boards or developers. So allowing them to impose fees, taxes, other financial burdens without the same level of transparency or public scrutiny and input required by city and county governments.
Let me ask something real quick. These MUDs, this system that already existed, what other groups or entity or whatever have used these structures before? Is there any other religious groups that have used these that you know of?
Not any other religious groups.
Right. And that's not quite accurate because we know that they're not particularly a religion.
I think this is the first time we're seeing such a crafty way of doing business by a religious organization.
Pseudo-religious, I guess I should have said.
Yeah, an ideological doctrine.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
So Epic's highly unconventional financial model blends faith-based donations with private investment, bypassing traditional transparency standards. So that's another point to keep in the back of your mind. It enforces ideological conformity. It controls land transactions and finances religious programming under the exclusive authority of Epic's leadership, the mega mosque. So you might have said, well, what are the investors getting? Because this 402 acres is worth a lot of money.
Right.
The minimum buy-in is $80,000 per share. So in order to qualify to purchase a lot, you have to buy into the minimum $80,000 per share. Now, the investor can't freely sell his lot. All resales must be approved by community capital partners, ensuring ideological alignment, because they don't want people that move in that they don't approve of. Epic City funding allocation, the 402-acre purchase was $17 million. The land development they estimate is going to be at $107 million, and then the religious infrastructure at $25 million, which will be the mosque, the Islamic schools, the Islamic community college, and those kinds of things.
Okay.
So it's financially engineered to fund a religious and ideologically governed community, potentially operating outside the full reach of Texas civil law and state and federal constitutional standards.
So then let me ask this question. How were these mutts or whatever set up? How were they even allowed to exist? Because, I mean, it's pretty obvious they could be exploited. I mean, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't let a group of, white separatists or a sovereign community, sovereign citizens or whatever, set their own community up like that. So I'm just curious how they created something that could be this easily exploited.
Well, I don't think when they created these, when you create a mud, it's usually out in the unincorporated areas of a county. Okay. And you create the mud, and you have to supply everything, all the utilities, the water, the sewer, the garbage, and all of that kind of stuff for the people that move into that mud district. And then, like I said, I mean, it's controlled by the developers. I mean, it's not controlled by the city or the county, because it's a kind of a governance system all by itself. And I don't know of any serious issues that we've had with MUDs before, but I think Epic, with all their crafty individuals, saw, okay, this might be a way for us to, develop one of our enclaves, using this MUD district structure.
Yeah. It's funny too, because in the, I know you've read it in the explanatory memorandum, they talk about taking over our civilization and using with our own, basically with our own hand, but they describe it in some other way. By our own hand. They're going to use our own hand to overthrow us. And that's a good example of what they're doing right there, is using an existing legal structure to set up an enclave, or from my view, to set up a tumor. I mean, because this is comparable to having a tumor in your wherever you're living.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Muslim Brotherhood process of settlement. It says the process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process, with all that the word means. The Ikhwan, Muslim Brotherhood, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization within and sabotaging its miserable house by its own hands and the hands of the believers, Muslims, so that it is eliminated and Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. That's exactly what their charter is.
That's their charter, and that's the doctrine of Islam. That's not something, that's not a Muslim Brotherhood version of it. That's the doctrine.
Absolutely. So the key promoter for this whole project out there is a guy named Yasser Qadi.
From Tennessee.
Excuse me?
He came from Tennessee. He used to be in Memphis.
That's right. Could y'all take him back?
No. Send him across the border. Deport him.
Now, Yasser is the imam for the East Plano Islamic Center, the mega mosque. He has a long history, as you know, from Tennessee. He has a long history as a hardline Islamic cleric. Yeah. And one of his former students is Umar Abdul Muttalib, better known as the underwear bomber for the 2009 attempt to bring down an airliner.
Oh, yeah.
And then Qadi has a long history of anti-Semitic, anti-Christian, and other hateful rhetoric. He denies the Holocaust. He refused to condemn the Hamas invasion of Israel on 7 October, which killed over 1,200 people. Qadi has been an outspoken supporter of a number of convicted terrorists with ties to Al-Qaeda, including Lady Al-Qaeda, who is terrorist Afia Siddiqui, who tried to kill several soldiers and FBI agents in Afghanistan. He's also connected with the Virginia Jihad Network ringleader Ali al-Tamimi. And I've got about a 30-page dossier on Cuddy. He is a bad news guy, very bad news.
And he's open about it.
Yeah, yeah. And he's every Friday at the mosque. He's slamming, America. He's slamming the Israelis. He's a real radical guy. I don't know why, we haven't taken him down before and sent him on his way somewhere. This project is also associated with multiple individuals and organizations with links to radical groups and includes those who have made anti-Semitic and anti-terrorism statements and are also unindicted co-conspirators out of the Holy Land Foundation trial, which, as you know, the largest terror funding trial in U.S. history.
That'd be CARE, right?
That'd be CARE.
Yep.
Some of the potential violations that are currently under investigation, of course, are the IRS 501c3 nonprofit restrictions, the USA Patriot Act and Bank Security Act, looking at terror financing and beneficial ownership. They're concerned with foreign investment and funding that might be coming from terrorist organizations. Looking at the Texas Property Codes, which governs restricted covenants and housing discrimination. So if you're going to have a housing that will only allow Muslims to live there and nobody else, then that's going to be a problem. That's going to be discrimination.
So the any other mutts that are set up in Texas, they're not limited to just a group or a race or a religion or an ideological faction.
Anybody.
Okay.
Anybody. Race, creed, color, none of that matters. It's for anybody.
Okay.
Then, of course, the Texas Constitution, when we're looking at separation of church and state, with Islam, there's no separation between church and state. Federal immigration law, visa abuse, and national security. Here's a quote: "The U.S. may bar admission to any foreign national seeking to promote foreign legal systems intended to replace U.S. law." And that's exactly what Sharia law does. They want to replace our system of government, our U.S. Constitution, with Sharia law.
Yeah. Now, Tennessee passed a law several years ago that prevents anything other than U.S. and Tennessee constitutions from being used in Tennessee. Didn't Texas pass something recently?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
but the bottom line is, if they were able to set this community up, if it wasn't stopped and they were allowed to do what they want to do, they would be a little enclave. They'd be a little Islamic cancer in that part of your state, and it would just spread.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. And go ahead.
Also looking at our Texas Government Code, which there are prohibitions on the use of public facilities for sectarian purposes. The Texas Business Organizations Code deals with conflicts of interest and self-dealing. So you got the guys that are, on the operationally and administratively on the mosque also have their hand into the financial side of this whole project. The Texas Election Code is being looked at, which prohibits political activity by religious nonprofits. So when they're throwing bombs at one candidate or another, and they're doing it out of the mosque, then that's going to be a problem.
I want to say something real quick, because a lot of people don't know. We have talked about it on this show before, but Islam. When we hear Islam, most people think, well, it's a religion. Well, we know it's actually it's all wrapped up. It's a religion. It's a political system, a military system. But over 50% of their doctrine applies to non-Muslims. How to deal with, how to treat, basically how to conquer and rule non-Muslims. Right. That is their doctrine. And so we don't really care who they pray to or how many times a day they pray, but the political aspect of that is, well, they want to have everybody hear the prayer call. They want to stop traffic and block the roads for the prayer call. And they want to force their way on us. They don't want to just, it's not about peaceful coexistence. As you read from the explanatory memorandum, it's about taking over, but it's not necessarily using violence, at least not at this stage.
Absolutely. And most people, I think George Bush, really kind of set the stage when, back after 9/11, saying that, Islam was a peaceful religion. Well, really, it's an ideology that has a component of religion. Yeah. So the political side of Islam is much bigger than the religious side of Islam. We're also looking at the Texas Charitable Trust Law, which addresses abuses of the WAF-style foreign endowments. So if they're getting foreign money to invest into the mosque and the projects, that's going to be an issue, a state and federal issue. We're also looking at Senate Bill 4, which was passed in 2017, which prohibits sanctuary zones. And if that's all Muslim, and no other folks allowed in, that would
qualify.
Follow that.
Okay.
Our Texas Penal Code, Chapter 557, anti-subversion law. So it's a felony offense to conspire to overthrow the government or to establish a foreign legal system, such as Sharia, in place of the U.S. Constitution or Texas statutes. Now, if you look at what's going on right now, Epic City is planned as a parallel legal structure grounded in Sharia-based arbitration and governance. So that will run afoul, I believe, of that statute.
Let me ask you: did all the information that you're getting about Epic City, everything that they put out, that's the way they described it, and was they were public with that, or you were able to find this somehow?
No, they're pretty public about it because they emphasize to the investors that they want to maintain Islamic values over the entire project. So if you're going to administer and require Islamic values, that's Sharia law.
Right.
And
they just had enough sense not to say that we want to implement Sharia, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But they said it in other ways.
Yeah, you have to look at the words and understand what the words mean.
Right.
Because words matter in these situations. And Yasser Qadi now is being the ideological leader and chairman of the FIG Council of North America, which is an entity with direct roots to the Muslim Brotherhood, a global Islamist organization whose stated goal is world domination and the implementation of Sharia law. U.S. federal prosecutors in the Holy Land Foundation terrorism funding trial identified the Islamic Society of North America, the Muslim Students Association, the FIG Council of North America, and the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, as part of a network tied to the Muslim Brotherhood, a designated terror organization by a number of countries. So I think, when we're starting to look at all these different aspects, hopefully we're going to have success in getting this stopped and getting stopped for good.
Right. Didn't they say that in that trial that Hamas is still a recognized terror entity? I don't know why we haven't rolled more people up, but in that trial, Hamas was recognized, and that they said CARE was Hamas. And that was back 2007, 2008, probably a couple years before Obama just deleted and erased any kind of law enforcement training at the federal level having to do with Islamic doctrine.
And if you look at the Hamas charter, it says Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam will obliterate it, just as it obliterated others before it. That's out of their own charter. So in their Article 2 of that same charter, the Islamic Resistance Movement, which is Hamas, is one of the wings of the Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine. So it's very clear, and they don't mind telling you, where they're at and what their goals are and what they're going to do. And they do it very well. And the problem is the West and the U.S., we don't listen very good.
No, we don't take them at their word. Now, let me ask you something. You rattled off a lot of different existing laws and regulations.
And got more.
And you got more, and we'll get to those. But my question is, I understand that construction has been stopped.
Yes.
Was it stopped because of the things you mentioned, or was it stopped for, I think I heard something about building code violations or proper licenses and permits?
Yeah, with all the investigations in progress and all the different state and federal agencies now looking at it, they've been told to cease and desist. Even the mosque in Plano was told got a cease and desist order from the Attorney General to stop conducting funeral services, which they had no license to do in the first place. So,
Now, you no longer work for the state. You're retired, but you still send them good information. But is there anybody at the state level that has the same understanding of this threat as you do?
Well, there may be some, but the problem is that this has been an area of education and training that has long since gone by the boards. I mean, the Obama administration essentially got rid of all the education and training about counterterrorism, about Islam, and organizations like CARE and some of the others were very instrumental in getting that in place, where the feds had to remove the word Islam, jihadist, terrorists out of all their documents and their training materials and things like that. So you've got a whole generation since then of law enforcement, intelligence agents, people who have not been schooled or trained in this particular area. And that's very concerning to me. As one who is getting up in age, and my peers that I know are very schooled in this area are also getting up in age, and it's very difficult to find someone that wants to get into this kind of education and training, because it does take a lot of reading and trying to understand all the complexities of the Quran, of the Hadith, of the Sirah. Some of the other documents that are doctrine, so that you can fully understand it. And Sharia law. I mean, Sharia law is like 900 pages, a very small type, but one has to, if you want to understand Islam, you first have to know who Muhammad was, because Muhammad is Islam. Right. And I always think when you think about great political and military leaders like Marcus Aurelius, Napoleon, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, Caesar, they were all great generals. But none of those guys hold a candle to Muhammad, because Muhammad, nobody is killing today on behalf of Marcus Aurelius or Napoleon or Alexander the Great or Caesar. But every day somebody is dying in the name of Muhammad, Allah Akbar.
Yeah. So
it's a problem, and people are going to have to get interested in this. And I always, I've had a number of citizens, just say, well, what can I do to educate myself? And I always say, well, look, go to the Center for the Study of Political Islam.
Yep.
They have
Bill Warner. We just had him on last week.
Yeah, have some great books. They're written so that they're understandable, and they're cost effective, so they don't cost much money. And it's probably the best way for a citizen or even someone, a novice that really wants to get involved in this, to get those and study those. And It's good.
The one book that it's a really small book that Bill Warner did, and I mentioned this when he was on, and I've talked about it in other shows as well. It's a small book. It's Sharia law for non-Muslims.
Yeah.
If you just read that,
Yeah.
you'll know enough to know that Islam is a problem and a threat. Now, of course, you could just remember that Islam was founded by a raping, murdering pedophile, so what good could come from it? But anyway, there are some great resources on CSPII International or either one. I think both of those sites are still up, Center for Study of Political Islam, and then, of course, the international site. But yeah, great stuff. He breaks it down into small pieces, so the average, in other words, you're not going to have to read a huge book to understand why it's a problem. Okay.
Yeah.
If you read everything, you'll understand more of the details of it, I think. But, and another thing, of course, that Bill mentions is the duality of it, how there's one part of it, the newer part of it before he became really violent is all, flowers and butterflies. But after he decided to take to the sword, it's a whole new ball game.
Yeah. Once he moved to Medina, then it was, expansion by the sword.
Yep.
And it hadn't stopped in 1,400 years.
Nope. And killed millions. It's killed millions.
Yeah.
And as long as it's around, it'll continue to kill. Now, so in Texas right now, everybody's focused on the Epic City, but that's not the only one. I think we were talking before, you said there's already several throughout Texas.
Yeah, there's several up in that same area, Blue Ridge and a number of different ones that are also dealing with the same issue. So, but there's been some pretty significant citizen turnout at the city council meetings and things like that. So those are all on the docket as well to be looked at, and are going to be getting some questions to them.
So, but it's on hold right now, and I'm assuming that all or most of the different issues you brought up, those things are going to have to be addressed, I would think.
Right. They're going to have to be addressed, and most of them are in progress right now being addressed. There are other things that I think that can be done and need to happen as we move forward with this. We need to the legislature needs to investigate and confront the abuse of the municipal utility district structure, for sure.
Right.
And then probably need to audit every EPIC affiliated nonprofit and LLC for tax, immigration, and charitable trust violations.
Yeah.
Then determine whether charitable donations from EPIC, the mega mosque, are being funneled into private real estate deals in violation of their 501c3 rules. And determine whether protections are being exploited to build an ideological-driven, foreign-backed enclave system in plain sight right in front of us. We need to terminate public funds, utilities, and emergency services to developments governed by religious law. So if we've got any of those that are already in place and we're providing them city services and things like that, those need to be terminated. We need to terminate public funds, utilities, and we also need to investigate and prosecute financial institutions and investors that are tied to anti-BDS violations, since we have a statute in Texas on that.
Oh, I'm sure you're going to find some of that with that group.
Oh, yeah. And we need to investigate foreign funding, ideological vetting, housing discrimination for potential violations. Determine whether foreign funding is fueling the expansion of enclaves that operate under religious or foreign influenced governance structures, which I think we can understand that's probably taking place. And then we need to determine if community capital partners is being used to bypass federal tax and nonprofit compliance laws, which would also impact the investors who may not, maybe unwittingly, not understanding what's taking place. They think they're investing in a righteous deal, but they don't understand all the things that are taking place behind it.
Right. Well, and if you guys were able to successfully shut this down using existing state and federal law, and maybe like you say, you probably need to maybe add one or two here or there, and basically just have a checklist for how to defeat cancers like this when they try to set up shop in your state or in your county.
Yeah, there's I recommend a book. It's called it's by Karen Lugo, and it's Mosque in America. And she has been pretty successful over the years in stopping some of these things, but before they get started. And so you really have to understand what you can do prior to or as soon as you hear that somebody's getting ready to buy a piece of property and build a mosque and an Islamic school and all of that on it, things to do before, and then things to do during, when they're at city councils or the county, fathers and trying to, set contracts or get services and things like that to support that project. And then things that you can do after, if it's already in place. So it's a good book to read, and it has a lot of very good information in it. But you're right. Putting together a checklist for law enforcement is one of the things that I'm playing with right now and working on. So that way law enforcement can take it and say, okay, well, I got this piece here, or I got that piece there, and somebody else has to, take this piece.
In a situation like this, where they're building, building a community essentially, what is your average cop going to look for? Are you talking more of your DAs that would be involved in this, and maybe certain types of inspectors?
Yeah, and mostly are going to be your state agencies, Health and Human Services, housing, all the Attorney General's office, all the different, maybe even agriculture departments, just there's a whole list of state agencies and state SECs, banking, finance. It's just the whole gamut, and all the ones I was kind of articulating a while ago, all the ones that are kind of in play right now. So hopefully we'll start seeing some fruits of all of these investigations here in the next several weeks.
So let me ask this: they started this. When did this thing start? Was it the first of the year, or was it last year?
Yeah, it was kind of the first of the year.
Okay, so when did the states finally decide, hey, we need to see what's going on here?
I think they really, I think Governor Abbott kind of kicked off things some part in or maybe early March. But, like I say, I mean, people were trying to figure out, number one, what are the violations?
Right, right.
Who does what? And because this is very unusual. It's not a murder, it's not a rape or a robbery where, people work them all the time. This was something very unusual, and people had to, get their legal staff in and say, hey, take a look at this and find out what we can do.
Were the contractors, the contractors are probably just local contractors as far as the builders? Do we know?
Well, it's interesting because in the documents from Epic City, if you buy a lot and you get ready to build, they will give you a list of approved builders.
Okay. Let me think. I'm thinking if you're on an approved Sharia list, if you're on an approved Sharia list, I think everybody should know you're on that approved Sharia list.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of interesting.
So they maybe a little late to the game, but it sounds like the administration is they've at least stopped it. Now, do we know for a fact they've stopped? I mean, they were ordered to stop. Do we know for a fact that they're abiding by that?
Yeah, I think so. At least that's what I'm hearing from people that I'm talking to up in that area.
Right. Well, is there any chance that they're going to, I mean, you've sent them a lot of information. I mean, is there any chance that, you're going to be meeting with some of the state leaders or maybe some of the state, the AG or state law enforcement that needs to know what to look for?
I've pushed a lot of stuff to quite a few people, and they all have my phone number.
Well,
I'm retired, so they can get me.
Right. Well, hey, any closing thoughts? Anything you want to add?
Well, the one thing I would say is that if Texas fails and these religiously based enclaves are allowed to develop, then they're going to spread all over the country.
Yep. And that's a scary thought.
Yeah, it should be. It should worry everybody. When you get the kids in the colleges saying that it's our job to destroy America, destroy capitalism, places like Qatar are, giving billions and billions of dollars to our universities. And it's not to teach Christianity or Judaism.
Right.
And you can see, we can all see what's happening in the colleges and universities, just terrible stuff. But it's something that, the American public has to educate themselves, and I'm not concerned about, for me or you, but I'm concerned about my granddaughters or my grandchildren and what the world is going to present to them, in a few years.
Right. Oh, you mentioned Qatar, and Qatar's known for financing terrorism.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's an old Arab comment. They say, you got the clock, talking about us, but we got the time.
Right.
And they do. They got the time, and they can take 100 years to get something accomplished, but they will take 100 years to get something accomplished.
I don't think they would need 100 here. If you look at their birth rate compared to our birth rate, it's pathetic. And that's the same problem that you've got in Europe. They have let so many Muslim immigrants in all these countries, and all those countries, even before they opened up the floodgates, all of them were already having trouble just replacing their population with their birth rates.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now they've invited in all these rats, and they're losing. They haven't only lost their streets; they're losing the war of the womb, and that's a problem. That's a problem for us as well. And I would say, I think I saw where our numbers were up a little bit, but my guess is our numbers are up not from natives to the U.S., not from U.S. citizens, but probably from the illegals would be my guess.
Yeah, and of course, the last 4 years, we don't know how many unvetted people got in as gotaways or were released into the communities, and that skyrockets our threat level and our risk level, something tremendously.
Every enemy in the world, I'm sure, has agents on the ground here because the gates were open for 4 years.
Yeah.
So
there's no reason not to take advantage.
Yeah. Well, is there a book in your future? You got the information and you got the history and experience. I'm just curious, have you ever thought about writing a book?
Well, what I'm concentrating on now is developing
a checklist,
some training modules in these different areas, because I know we're going to have another significant attack, and I know when that happens, people will be screaming, "Oh my God, we need some information about this." I'll have it in the can, and I'll be ready to send it out to them to,
Yeah.
And kind of where it's self-educational. You can just go through it and educate yourself. Written at an easy level, kind of like the way Dr. Warner does his books. Keep it simple.
Right.
Keep it, where people can understand it, and hopefully we don't have another serious attack. But I'm convinced we will, and then maybe sooner rather than later.
Well, if the federal government would do what it should do and declare Muslim Brotherhood, declare CARE, and certain other organizations as terrorist entities, and or some of the entities that they've already declared this actually start enforcing it, start weeding them out, then that would go a long way, because the states way too often just wait on the Fed. Oh, well, we got to wait for the feds to do that, and if they don't get it from the feds, it's as if it doesn't exist. That's pathetic, but it's true.
And it's easy enough to figure out who all the organizations are, because they were all listed, 200 something of them in the Holy Land Foundation trial, and they were all unindicted co-conspirators.
Yep.
So
can that case still be prosecuted? Could they still prosecute that case?
Well, it's been so long now, I'm not sure if the federal government has if there's a statute of limitation on that. But at least they know where the list is. They could certainly get out there and do some audits and see where their money's coming from. Is it coming from foreign sources, or in what they're doing with it?
Yeah, and at least some, if not all, of that list you referenced is also in the explanatory memorandum that the Muslim Brotherhood, that the FBI found that memorandum, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, 1988. Yep.
Well, hey, thanks again for coming on, and love to have you back on. Thanks for all you do.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. I want to thank the audience for taking the time to watch our program tonight. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons, as well as the notification bell, so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. Did you know over 60% of our viewers aren't subscribed? We're incredibly grateful to have over 570 subscribers, but here's the truth. To keep the Tennessee Informer on the air, we need your support. Currently, Nashville has the highest number of viewers, but we also have viewers in New York, LA, and Chicago. Subscribing is completely free. Even watching just 10 to 15 minutes per episode helps us a lot. Your views boost our numbers, attract sponsors, and keep this show alive. If you're already subscribed, thank you. If not, take a second to hit the button and tune in when you can. Together we can keep this show on. Also, if you have guest suggestions or topic suggestions that you would like to see, please comment below or send us an email at tninformer.tv@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Check out our audio podcast on iHeart, Spotify, and other platforms as well. Sign up for our weekly newsletter at our website, tninformer.com. We also have a special show this Sunday, 2 p.m., with Art Garhart, a decorated veteran. He went to Vietnam 4 different times. He is a survivor of the Battle of the Ladrang Valley. That's the first major battle of the Vietnam War, and topic of the book and the movie, We Were Soldiers Once and Young. Our guest next week, May 19th, will be Joe Wolverton, joining us to talk about his new book on James Madison titled The Miraculous Life and Legacy of James Madison. Tune in to hear our expert on the Constitution talk about the father of the Constitution. Hope you'll join us again next week. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.